Hey, I'm Wyatt, and these are the top 25 worst albums of 2015. Because we got so many albums to talk about, I hope you guys don't mind if I skip through the first 15 or so fairly quickly, and then we'll go way more in depth into the top 10, which I have a lot more to say about. Hope you guys don't mind, and without further ado, let's get on with the list, starting with... an album from Metric titled Pagans in Vegas. Now, Metric are actually one of my favorite bands, but this is an album that has really never worked for me. They pretty much got rid of all of their rock elements and just went full-on synth pop with this album, and a lot of the synth choices on here really do not sound good. They often sound so grating, you'd think you were listening to some forgotten 80s prog album, and for a band like Metric that have conveyed so many different emotions, this album doesn't really make me feel anything. It's completely forgettable. Honestly, if you want a good version of this, just listen to a Church's album. After that, we've got an album from Muse titled Drones. Remember when Muse were good? Yeah, me neither. Nah, but in all honesty, Muse were genuinely a pretty great band at one point. I mean, Origin of Symmetry, Absolution, and Black Holes and Revelations are all phenomenal albums. But recently, they haven't really produced anything that's worth listening to, and Drones was kind of the beginning of the end. By this point, their politics and their social commentary had become so vague that it could literally apply to anything. Matt Bellamy's vocals had become so incredibly theatric and over the top that it's impossible to take anything he says seriously. Basically, everything that I cannot stand about Simulation Theory and Will of the People all started here. Then we've got an album from Modest Mouse titled Strangers to Ourselves. Like with Metric, Modest Mouse are another one of my favourite bands, but in my opinion, Modest Mouse had never put out a bad album until this one. It is pretty much just an amalgamation of all of this band's worst ideas. I guess there are a few moments that aren't terrible, but for the most part, it feels like they were trying way too hard to go pop, to be as clean and radio-friendly as possible, and it just does not fit Isaac Brock's voice. Say what you want to about Modest Mouse, you cannot deny Isaac Brock has a very strange way of singing. He just cannot pull off an album like this, and on a song like Pistol, it gets genuinely unlistenable. So yeah, as much as I love Modest Mouse, this album just doesn't work for me. Then, after that, we've got an album from Andy Grammer titled Magazines or Novels. Now, this man, Andy Grammer, you may not recognize him from his name, but you may recognize him from his biggest hit, Honey, I'm Good. And while that song is especially annoying, the rest of this album isn't very good either. At least Honey, I'm Good was semi-original. The rest of this album just feels like it's listing off every pop cliche. You know how when you go into a supermarket, or a fast food place, or a restaurant, they'll have a playlist or a radio station playing, but none of the songs are really memorable, you're not really paying attention to them. That's what this album reminds me of. It sounds like it was specifically designed to be in one ear and out the other. The only exceptions to that are the big hit and Good to Be Alive, and that's because those songs are so incredibly annoying you can't ignore them. But apart from those songs, this album is just as generic as it gets. I'm a fraud, I pray to God when a 6 triple book bashing while me and my favorite author tickle. After that, we've got Cherry Bomb by Tyler, the Creator. Now, please do not get me wrong. I like Tyler, the Creator. I think he's done some phenomenal albums, but this one has always felt like a failed experiment to me. I'm talking the kind of failed experiment that fails so badly it blows up the entire science lab in the process. At points, this album genuinely hurts to listen to. Like, you know those ear rape versions of songs that used to be big on YouTube? This whole album sounds like the ear rape version of itself. And pretty much everything that he would fail to do on this album, he would succeed at on Flower Boy and Igor years later. So at least in my opinion, there really isn't a reason to return to this album. After that, we've got an album from James Bay titled The Chaos and the Calm. Check out this article that I recently discovered. This is Radio X's best albums of 2015. They actually put this James Bay album at number 4. But here's the thing. They just full-on forgot to review it. Seriously. Read that again. They literally just list a few songs and then move on to the next album. There isn't a review there. That's so incredibly lazy and unprofessional. I can't believe they did that. So you know what? As someone that didn't like this album, I am going to go in depth. I'm going to go into full detail as to why this was a failure. Because unlike them, we're all about serious music criticism over here. First things first, let me just say that James Bay is an absolute What I wanted. Then we've got an album from Gang of Four titled What Happens Next. I'm not gonna lie, it does feel at least a bit cruel of me to put this album on this list. I mean, it's only been like 5 to 6 years since Andy Gill died, and it does feel a bit weird to be speaking ill of the deceased in this way. But I can't deny, this album really wasn't very good, and also completely missed the point of why Gang of Four was so great. Because this album's meant to be all dark and moody and intense. You know, this Gang of Four album. You know, Gang of Four, one of the most fun bands in all of post-punk. Nobody wanted an album this intense from Gang of Four. This album's so lacking in colour, it would make Robert Smith's wardrobe look like the fucking My Little Pony universe. It's so dull and lifeless and boring, I genuinely do not know who would be into this album. Overall, this album just feels pointless. You're dead already! Dead already! Then we've got Are You Satisfied by Soft Play, or as they were known at the time, Slaves. A big problem when reviewing punk and other more political styles of music is sometimes you can just completely agree with a message. You can agree with everything a band is saying and still think the album sounds like shit. And yeah, Soft Play are definitely an example of that for me. I couldn't stand this album. Their lead singer sounds so over the top and ridiculous, it's almost like he's trying to be a parody of your average punk singer. Seriously, I don't know what it is about the guy. He just really gets on my nerves on pretty much every song I've heard from this band. And the lyrics on here feel so insanely repetitive. Like, seriously, songs like Cheer Up London sound like they were genuinely written in under a minute. They're just repeating the same phrases again and again and again. It gets so annoying after a while. Honestly, there are so many better punk albums out there. Skip this one. Then we've got an album by the band Peace titled Happy People. Now, I'll be honest, I highly doubt that any of you remember this band, or at least I doubt that the vast majority of you do. In the mid-2010s, there was a whole scene of just shit-tier, generic as all hell indie bands coming out of the UK. The kind of bands that the rock stations in the UK would just play to death. And if you don't remember Peace specifically, there was a reason for that. They pretty much sounded like everyone else. There was nothing unique about them. This album is just cliche after cliche. There's nothing on this album that you can't get out of your average Catfish and the Bottommen, or Blossoms, or Vaccines album. And I don't even like any of those bands either, but at least you can tell their songs apart. Just overall, this album was painfully generic. It's about as memorable as... what were we talking about again? Then, after that, we've got an album by Fall Out Boy titled American Beauty, American Psycho. Now, I don't know if this is just a nostalgia talking, but I would probably defend most of Fall Out Boy's albums, but pretty much everything they released in the 2010s was shocking. And while this album is definitely better than Save Rock and Roll, and especially Mania, it's still not very good. There's a lot of really lazy sampling on here. Just in general, this album feels like it's trying way too hard to get on the radio, and some of the lyrics on this thing are shockingly bad. Like, take the title track, for example. I could write this. This is so repetitive. But hey, at least this album isn't Mania. Seriously, if I ever do a video on the worst albums of 2018, that album would be top 5 at least.
We are the new Americana.
Coming up next, we've got an album from Halsey titled Badlands. Again, I don't hate Halsey or anything. I think she's done some good stuff since this album, but this thing really hasn't aged well. It is quite possibly the most dated album of 2015, second only to my number one. Every song sounds like the movie trailer cover version of itself, with lyrics that try to be all deep and thought-provoking, but they're about as deep as a half-empty glass of water. Plus, her vocals used to be so much more annoying. She sounds like she's doing a really bad Lorde impression. And just going off the reviews that I've seen, I am not the first person to make that comparison. Just in general, this album really hasn't aged well, and she's definitely done a lot better since this. Coming up next, we got Sucker by Charli XCX. Early Charli XCX is definitely weird to look back on, isn't it? Because not only is her early stuff considerably worse than what she's doing now, it also just sounds completely different. And this album specifically just feels so corporate to me. I don't think I've ever heard an album that sounded this disingenuous. It's easy to forget that Charli writes her own stuff while listening to this, because this just feels like teenage rebellion as depicted by a lot of middle-aged, out-of-touch record executives. Like, there is basically no substance to any of this. It is just all image. I do like some pop music, but everything that I don't like about the genre is all over this album. The fact that this is the same artist that released one of the best pop albums I've ever heard in my life is mind-blowing to me. Up next, we got an album from Matt and Kim titled New Glow. I actually saw a few critics giving this one shit, and I was honestly fairly surprised. I mean, seriously? Matt and Kim? The Daylight Band? I mean, I haven't heard much from them, but I remember really liking that song when I was younger, so I was honestly surprised that people hated this album as much as they did. But now that I've actually heard this album, I completely get it. This album honestly has some of the shittiest, like, cheapest sounding production I think I've ever heard on a pop album. Like, there are a few other problems with it. The lyrics can get kind of corny. The songs, yet again, can get very repetitive and annoying. But really, my big problem with this album is the production. It genuinely sounds like shit. I would say that this album sounds like it was made on GarageBand, but that's honestly an insult to GarageBand. This sounds like it was made on, I don't know, Sibelius. Like, you know those deliberately bad producers you get on TikTok? That is what this album sounds like to me. I mean, look at this. Look, this album isn't any higher because I can very much tell that this is just meant to be a bit of fun. It's not meant to be taken too seriously, and I can respect that, but god does it sound like shit. No offense to Matt and Kim, they seem like genuinely nice people, and I'm sure they've got better albums than this one, but what the fuck? After that, we've got a Madonna album titled Rebel Heart. This album just seems desperate to me. Like an aging pop singer from decades prior desperately trying to cling on to a relevancy. Like, you guys know this meme, right? Yeah, well, whenever I hear a song like Unapologetic Bitch or Bitch I'm Madonna, that is the meme that plays in my head. This album has such obvious trend chasing that it's funny. And by the end of this album, when you get songs like Holy Water, it just gets absolutely unlistenable. I mean, have you ever heard Holy Water by Madonna? So yeah, not a great album. But hey, at least she doesn't rap on this one.
I'm drinking a Solante, I get a double shot it. Because you know I'm all about that bass, no trouble.
Coming up next, we've got a Meghan Trainor album named Title. I'll be honest, I don't even know why I listened to this one, because, like, it's a Meghan Trainor album. What the fuck did I expect? I spoke about this when I reviewed the last David Byrne album, but it is possible for an album to be too happy. Like, when an album is so incredibly upbeat and positive and happy that it just gets on your nerves. And yeah, that is what the entirety of this album sounds like to me. Except with added social commentary that tries to be all thought-provoking and deep, but ends up being about as deep as a half-full glass of water. Just in general, once you've heard one song on this album, you've pretty much heard them all. Literally the only surprise on here is when she randomly made a sex song involving drumming metaphors.
I got a thing called drummers, how the beat shakes up my heart. Triple it, all that shit. Could do the paradiddle with a little bit of samba, but there we go again with the double stroke.
But apart from the drumming themed sex song, there isn't really much on here that you won't expect.
Mama said that it was okay. Mama said that it was quite alright.
Coming up next, you got the second album from Lukas Graham, titled Lukas Graham. This band are named after their lead singer, Lukas Graham. This album is actually the follow-up to Lukas Graham, as well as the predecessor to the albums Lukas Graham and Lukas Graham. And yeah, if you couldn't guess, this is one of the most egotistical albums you will ever hear in your life. Pretty much throughout the entirety of Lukas Graham, the album, I mean, you see Lukas Graham, the singer, I mean, taking these fairly interesting topics and then twisting them to be about how great his life is. Throughout this album, he becomes so incredibly insufferable and arrogant that it's honestly hard to listen to. Pretty much this whole album feels like one long humble brag. I mean, if you know any song from Lukas Graham, the band, I mean, it's probably 7 Years, which is, in my opinion, one of the worst hit songs of all time. And if you thought that song was pretentious and insufferable, you are gonna hate the rest of this album. I mean, there's a song on here called You're Not There, which is meant to be about Lukas Graham, the singer's dead dad. But then you get to the chorus and it just becomes unbearably arrogant as he's saying that he wishes his dad was there to celebrate just how great his life is. That's what the entirety of Lukas Graham, the album, feels like to me. Like he's constantly trying to be thoughtful and sensitive, but then just gives up and worships himself. And oh my god, it gets so annoying at points. But the worst song on Lukas Graham, the album, has to be Funeral. In fact, this is probably the worst song that Lukas Graham, the band, have ever released. I mean, I haven't heard anything from Lukas Graham, the other 3 albums, but I can't imagine they come close to this song. It's literally about how he's excited for his own funeral because he's looking forward to everyone else celebrating how great his life is. It's that insufferable. The only reason this album isn't higher is that musically, it's okay. The instrumentation throughout is solid. You can very much tell that Lukas Graham, the band, know what they're doing. But lyrically, this album is absolutely insufferable, and I hope I never have to listen to Lukas Graham, all of the above, ever again.
I don't even know if I believe
Coming up next, we got Wilder Mind by Mumford & Sons. This was Mumford & Sons' attempt to just get rid of all the gimmicks, try out a new sound. They were going to evolve. And they did evolve. But they evolved kind of in the same way that Benjamin Button did. Like, they were fully developed before this album, and then they went in the complete wrong direction. Because, guys, I've never liked Mumford & Sons, but those older albums sound like songs of the fucking deaf compared to this thing. Remember how I called What Happens Next boring? Yeah, that album looks like a fucking Machine Girl album compared to this thing. This album is so incredibly lifeless and dull and empty sounding. Every song on here just leaves your head right after it finishes. Every song has the same starts off quiet, gets louder structure, or it just goes nowhere. Look, perhaps I'm a bit biased here. I've never liked this sort of sound that this album's going for. It's very reminiscent of early Coldplay or Snow Patrol or The Fray or a billion other bands I can't stand. But even still, why was this the sound they chose to go for? Who the hell wanted this out of the band that made Little Lion Man or I Will Wait? I don't even like those songs, but they're a billion times more interesting than whatever this is. And yeah, those songs were gimmicky, and I guess this album is them trying to be taken seriously, but they don't pull it off at all. I guess this isn't the worst thing I've ever heard. Like, I could see someone enjoying this, and this is quite possibly the last album that we're going to talk about where I could say that, but it is really not for me. I honestly found it completely tedious. Coming up next, we got an album from Fooling in Reverse titled Just Like You. This is actually the best Fooling in Reverse album that I've heard. Yes, I genuinely hate this band that much. Okay, so this video doesn't get too serious, we're gonna try and avoid talking about all the intensely fucked up shit that Ronnie Radke has done in the past. Though that is definitely a hard conversation to avoid when we get to a song like the title track on here, in which he's saying that he's aware he's an arsehole, but he doesn't care because he's just like you. Need I remind you that this is the guy that got arrested for domestic violence and didn't show up to the court case? But even if you can avoid talking about the allegations, this album is still ungodly amounts of bad. And it's bad in pretty much every single way you'd expect a Fooling in Reverse album to be. It's annoying, it's gross, it sounds like shit. Ronnie's vocals are as whiny and grating as ever. The first two tracks on here are honestly just mediocre, but by the time you get to track 3, Sexy Drug, it just becomes unbearable. And it doesn't ever get better. In fact, this is probably the album where I find Ronnie's singing the most intolerable. I mean, I guess I'm glad that he doesn't try rapping on this one like he did on the previous album, but wow, I don't think I've ever seen Ronnie get on my nerves this much, especially on tracks like Get Me Out and the already mentioned title track. Look, Ronnie Radke is a man that's honestly hard to criticize, because everything that people like me don't like about the guy seems to actually be intentional. Like, yeah, he comes off like a whiny, annoying arsehole, but he's trying to come off like a whiny, annoying arsehole, so he actually succeeded in what he's trying to do. Which on the one hand means that when someone like me criticizes him, people can just respond with, you don't get it. But then the other point is, just because it's intentionally annoying doesn't make it any less annoying. If you intentionally burn your house down, that doesn't make it any better. You still have a burnt down house. So yeah, I cannot stand this band and I cannot stand this album. The fact that this is actually their best album that I've heard is really saying a lot. Coming up next, we got an album from AJR titled Living Room. I'm gonna be honest, this take feels a bit too obvious. I mean, AJR are one of the most hated bands in all of modern day music, so I didn't exactly expect this album to be good. It did feel like kind of an easy target. But what do I think of the album now that I've heard it? Well, this is gonna sound weird, but this is both the album from them that I hate the least, and also probably their most unlistenable. The thing that always got to me about AJR was just how smug and arrogant they came across. Like, they'd write these inherently silly and goofy sounding songs and then take them so seriously to the point of pretentiousness. They are to music what Zack Snyder is to movies, basically. I don't get that vibe off of Living Room. I mean, unlike The Click, which is so insufferable that it's one of my least favorite albums of all time, Living Room just kind of feels like a bunch of sweet, innocent pop songs, and I can't get too annoyed about that. It's just a shame that the actual songs themselves are so bad that they're honestly kind of funny. The lead single off this album is a song called I'm Ready, which is built off a fucking SpongeBob sample. There's also a song on here where the chorus is built around yodeling. Yodeling, 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 yodeling. There's even a song on here where AJR accidentally compared themselves to a literal nonce.
Now I'm feeling just like Woody Allen.
And those are the famous songs on here. The rest of this album is horrible too. At best, this album can be a bit generic. At worst, it can be so bad that it actually makes you laugh. This album is the equivalent of making a really nice meal for your friend. Just something that would taste absolutely delicious. And then just before giving it to them, shitting in it. Like, a lot of the songs on here have fairly good ideas, like The World is a Marble Heart, or even I'm Ready. But then they just shove something in there that ruins it. So yeah, this album's really bad, and whatever potential it did have was honestly wasted.
Express my love in each and every way. Step a borderline yandere.
Coming up next, we've got Oh Whoa What's This by Hentai Dude. Okay, yeah, if you couldn't guess, I got this one from Reddit. Yeah, I was struggling to find bad albums for this list, so I went over to Reddit and I found this one. Have you ever seen a more Reddit-ass album in your life? And yeah, this album is genuinely gross. With the exception of my number one, this is the album that makes me the most physically uncomfortable on this list. Literally the only reason this isn't top 5 is I kind of doubt any of you actually listen to this. Like, to me, this just feels like a really bad shitpost. I mean, come on, are any of you guys actually big Hentai Dude fans? Do you go to Hentai Dude shows and wear Hentai Dude t-shirts? Is Oh Whoa What's This the album that changed your life? Honestly, let's just move on from this one, and we don't need to give this album any more attention than it deserves.
And I say, hey, leave it like we're renegades.
Coming up next, we've got an album called VHS by X-Ambassadors. Okay, if you remember the X-Ambassadors from anything, it's probably the song Renegades, a song which was cliche, it was boring, it was generic. In other words, it's the best song on this album. The best way I can describe the X-Ambassadors is that they are to Imagine Dragons what Theory of a Dead Man was to Nickelback. They do the exact same sound, but way worse. Like with that AJR album I was talking about before, every time this band finds a good idea or an interesting concept, they end up doing just something to fuck it up. Like, I'm gonna be honest, their second hit, Unsteady, might be one of my least favorite songs ever. It's mopey, it's dull, it's lifeless. Lyrically, it's incredibly corny and melodramatic. It's pretty much got everything that I don't like in music all in one song. As well as that, the song Fear has just one of the most grating choruses I've heard in ages. Hang On is incredibly annoying vocally. That's another thing. This guy's voice is so annoying. He sounds like he's trying way too hard to emote, trying to make every note sound as soulful as possible. I compared this band earlier to Imagine Dragons, and I don't really like Dan Reynolds' voice either, but he sounds like fucking Chester Bennington in comparison to this guy. Just in general, this sound is a sound that I am so glad is dead. This kind of trap meets alternative rock meets electronic bullshit. The kind of stuff that sounds like it was solely designed to soundtrack car adverts. This was a period of time where so many rock bands gave up on their sound, try to go pop, try to chase trends. Look, if you liked this sound, more power to you, but I am so glad that it's dead. And in my opinion, X-Ambassadors were the worst band doing this. So overall, I don't know if I explained this one very well, but there were very few albums on this list that pissed me off as much as this one.
It's unbelievable. This is as good as it gets.
Up next, we got an album from Owl City titled Mobile Orchestra. Now, before I heard this album, I didn't really have any problems with Owl City. He was just kind of okay. But this album specifically really didn't work for me. For the most part, this album felt like a really cynical cash grab. Like Adam Young was trying to make the most inoffensive, watered-down, radio-friendly album possible. At points, it sounds like he's literally pandering to different markets. Like the song Unbelievable, which is just filled with 90s reference after 90s reference, and has a Hanson feature, and it's pretty much just pure nostalgia bait. The vast majority of this album just feels like he's trying way too hard to get on the radio. I don't usually like using the term selling out. I think people usually use it in the wrong way. But in my opinion, that is what this album is. This is a sellout. This is Adam Young taking everything that was original and interesting about his music, removing it, and just writing whatever will make him the most money. Whether it's a bunch of soulless collabs with bigger artists, or generic love songs, or pure nostalgia bait, or even a song like My Everything, which, okay, I'm gonna tread lightly here. Because here's the thing. As much as I'm an atheist myself, I'm not going to criticize a song just for having religious themes. It's like any other song topic. You can do it well and you can do it badly. But as for this song specifically, I'm sorry, I really didn't like it. It just feels so incredibly safe. There's nothing in it you haven't heard a billion times before. There's nothing original. Apparently he's done other religious themed songs before. I was shocked. And on an album like this one, where he's trying to pander to so many different audiences and make money off so many different demographics, suddenly making a song for the Christian music crowd just makes it feel a bit, I don't know, cynical. Just something about this song and this album as a whole really rubs me the wrong way. It feels so incredibly corporate and manufactured. Just in general, I really didn't like this one. We're now in the top 3, and coming up next is Miley Cyrus and Her Dead Pets by Miley Cyrus. This album has a reputation for being, to put it nicely, one of the worst albums of all time. And while I don't know how much I agree, I do definitely get it. For one thing, this is basically a glorified collab album between the Flaming Lips and Miley Cyrus. Let me repeat that again. The Flaming Lips and Miley fucking Cyrus. This is like if King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard did a full album with Ariana fucking Grande. It's the kind of collab album where if someone tells you it exists, you think they're joking. And right from the opening track, Do It, you kind of know that you're in for a interesting experience, shall we say. Seriously, Do It is one of those songs where I genuinely cannot imagine anyone that would want to listen to it. And the rest of this hour and 30-minute long album isn't great either. All of these songs range from being just tediously boring to being genuinely unlistenable, with lyrics so incredibly dumb you have to wonder if this is all just one big troll. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a lot of people's worst album from this year. But if I'm being honest, I'm kind of fascinated by it. It's one of those albums that's so incredibly weird and out there and unexpected, you just don't really know what to do with it. On the one hand, it is a gutsy move to put out an album like this, but on the other hand, I don't think I would ever actually choose to listen to it. So far, this list can pretty much be split up into 2 different types of album. The kind that piss me off for very personal reasons, and the kind that are just really hard to listen to. And in my opinion, this album, as well as the one we're about to talk about, are in the latter category. I don't think these albums were made with bad intentions or anything, they're just really, really hard to listen to, at least in my opinion. Coming up next, we've got Speeding Bullet to Heaven by Kid Cudi. I both read and watched a lot of videos on the worst albums of 2015, and this is definitely an album that came up a lot, especially at number 1. Which makes sense because wow is this album hard to listen to. Every instrument is played so sloppily it would give the Shags a run for their money. Kid Cudi's vocals sound really strained throughout. The album's also way too long, just like Miley Cyrus and Her Dead Pets was. It's filled with these random Beavis and Butthead sketches. No, seriously, I'm not making that up. Beavis and Butthead are all over this album. If I was basing my picks entirely on the music and not even remotely on the lyrics or anything else, this would be number 1. And with the exception of my number 1, this is by far the hardest album on this list to listen to. But then I remembered that, in case you don't know, this album was meant to be a cry for help. Yeah, he was genuinely struggling and made this album as a way of getting people's attention. And with that knowledge, this album does start to remind me of something like, I don't know, Pinkerton. You know what I mean? It's dark, it's uncomfortable, it's revealing, but it's kind of fascinating because of that. That doesn't necessarily make it easier to listen to. I still really cannot stand this album, hence why it's number 2 on this list. But I don't know, I personally wouldn't put it in that category of being one of the worst of all time. Now, is this next album one of the worst of all time? I don't know if most people would think that, but it is definitely one of my personal least favorites. But before I reveal to you what it is, I just want to quickly give you just a very quick warning. So basically, my number 1, the number 1 worst album of 2015 in my opinion, my personal least favorite, is the one with the biggest fan base out of every album on this list. I mean, look at some of the albums we've spoken about in this video. We've got albums that got forgotten, albums that got trashed by critics and fans, albums that people like but don't consider the artist's best. This next album, though, is often considered the best album from an artist of one of the most dedicated fan bases I have ever seen. So please note that if you like this album, that is completely fine. We're all allowed to like what we like. Music is subjective. I really don't get why. I am of course referring to the debut album from Melanie Martinez, CRYBABY. I'm not gonna lie, this album makes me physically uncomfortable. Every time I try to re-listen to it, I have to take breaks. And like with Fooling in Reverse, we're gonna ignore the allegations just for a moment. I think it was incredibly fucked up what she did, but I don't really know enough information to really make a statement about it in this video. But also, even if you do ignore the allegations, this album is still impossible to sit through for me. First off, the amount of infant fetishization on this album is genuinely disgusting. The way she writes these songs with all this infantile imagery and then sings them in this very babyish kind of voice. On songs like Alphabet Boy and Sippy Cup, it is just genuinely hard to sit through. And I know that if any Melanie Martinez fans watch this, they'll probably say, oh, it's intentional. But the thing is, like I mentioned in Fooling in Reverse, just because it's intentionally like this doesn't make it any easier to listen to. And also, let's just quickly bring up what that intention is. Why she's using all this infantile imagery. It's meant to be a metaphor for childhood trauma that she made up. Yeah, look it up. She's playing a character in this. Now, I don't even know if I can describe it, but something about that genuinely feels like just wrong, just morally wrong to me. I don't even know why. It's just something about the idea of a major label pop artist marketing herself to people with genuine childhood trauma, making money off people who've experienced very specific shit that she knows nothing about. Something about that just really pisses me off. And I know I probably sound really preachy right now, but that's just genuinely how I feel here. But I do realize you didn't click on this video to be lectured about how offensive an album is, so I'm gonna move on. Just even looking past all of that, this album still just sounds so dated, especially on songs like Carousel and Soap. They are genuinely abysmal. But pretty much throughout this whole album, it's just bad idea after bad idea after bad idea. Just in general, this album's gross, it's manipulative, it's annoying, it's dated, it's badly made. I pretty much have nothing good to say about it, and the fact it got as big as it was genuinely confuses me. Now, again, if you do like this album, that is completely fine. It is your opinion. Please do not take anything I've said to heart. I'm not trying to make you feel bad for liking this album. But just personally, I genuinely despise this album. And it is, in my opinion, the worst album of 2015.